Hello everyone. Have you ever wondered how two simple vitamins can decide whether our blood clots properly or whether our cells survive constant attack from free radicals? Today we are going to explore vitamin E and vitamin K, the body's silent guardians that protect us at both the cellular and structural level. Let us begin by understanding why fat-soluble vitamins are so special. Unlike water-soluble vitamins that need constant replenishment, fat-soluble vitamins get stored in our body tissues and act as long-term biological reserves. Among these, vitamin E works as the cellular shield, protecting the microarchitecture like cell membranes and lipids from oxidative destruction. Vitamin K, on the other hand, works as the structural guardian, protecting the macroarchitecture such as our vascular network and skeletal system by enabling critical protein activation. Now let us look closer at vitamin E. The only form that truly matters for human sufficiency is α-tocopherol. Although all forms of vitamin E are absorbed in the small intestine, the liver selectively metabolizes and retains only alpha-tocopherol. The daily requirement for adults is 15 milligrams. This vitamin is naturally found in vegetable oils such as sunflower, safflower, wheat germ, and cottonseed oil, as well as in nuts like almonds and peanuts, and in whole meal cereals. Vitamin E plays several important protective roles. It acts as an antioxidant interceptor, preventing the propagated oxidation of saturated fatty acids and protecting low-density lipoproteins from oxidative damage, which in turn reduces the risk of ischemic heart disease. It also has an immunomodulatory role, enhancing lymphocyte proliferation while decreasing serum lipid peroxides. Additionally, it has antiplatelet action, inhibiting platelet adhesion by blocking LDL oxidation and reducing prostaglandin E2. And it prevents smooth muscle proliferation by inhibiting protein kinase C. Interestingly, vitamin E deficiency is rarely caused by poor diet. It almost always stems from systemic fat malabsorption. This can happen due to hepatic or biliary causes like chronic cholestatic hepatobiliary disease, which decreases bile flow and micelle formation. It can also happen due to pancreatic causes such as cystic fibrosis and exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, where digestive enzymes are not properly secreted. Intestinal causes include short bowel syndrome and Crohn's disease. Genetic and metabolic causes include Abetalipoproteinemia and familial isolated vitamin E deficiency syndrome. Dietary deficiency itself is extremely rare in developed nations and is mostly seen in developing countries. Premature low birth weight infants under 1500 grams are also at critical risk due to poor placental transfer. When vitamin E deficiency goes unchecked, it takes a heavy toll on the nervous system. The hallmark triad includes ataxia, which is the most common finding on examination, difficulty with upward gaze, and hyporeflexia. The disease usually begins with decreased night vision and loss of vibratory sense, while cognition remains normal. As it progresses, it leads to severe limb and truncal ataxia along with profound muscle weakness. In the end stage, unchecked deficiency can lead to blindness, dementia, and cardiac arrhythmias. Pigmented retinopathy and visual field loss are common in Abetalipoproteinemia, while personality and behavioral disorders are commonly seen in cholestatic liver disease. So, how do we assess and restore this cellular shield? Diagnosis is based on specific thresholds. In a standard adult, serum alpha-tocopherol below 5 microgram per milliliter indicates deficiency. In a hyperlipidemic adult, we look at the ratio of serum alpha-tocopherol to serum lipids, and a ratio below 0.8 mg per gram is considered abnormal, since abnormal lipid levels can skew absolute measurements. In pediatric Abetalipoproteinemia, levels are often completely undetectable. Management follows 3 steps. First, we address the root cause by treating the underlying malabsorption pathology such as biliary obstruction or pancreatic insufficiency. Second, we provide targeted supplementation, administering 15 to 25 mg per kilogram once daily or mixed tocopherols at 200 international units. Third, if intestinal absorption is severely compromised, we adjust the route of delivery and shift immediately to intramuscular injection. Now let us move on to vitamin K, the structural guardian of our body. Vitamin K has a dual origin. The daily requirement is 120 microgram per day for men and 90 microgram per day for women. Dietary vitamin K comes as Phylloquinone, also known as vitamin K1, derived from leafy green vegetables and vegetable oils and absorbed through fat-dependent pathways in the jejunum and ileum. The second source is menaquinone or vitamin K2, which is synthesized directly by microbiome flora within the distal large intestine. This creates a symbiotic vulnerability because since human reserves depend heavily on intestinal flora, long-term use of broad-spectrum antibiotics can rapidly suppress this synthesis and trigger acute deficiency. Vitamin K acts as the activation key for both hemostasis and structural integrity. It activates clotting factors 2, which is prothrombin 7, 9, and 10. It also activates anticoagulant proteins C, S, and Z and enables calcium binding for clot formation. Beyond coagulation, vitamin K also supports mineralization by activating osteocalcin, which drives bone mineralization by osteoblasts, and by activating matrix GLA protein, which prevents pathological vascular calcification. An important mechanism to remember is that vitamin K epoxide reductase efficiently recycles the molecule for reuse, and warfarin acts as a potent inhibitor of this very recycling process. Newborns are particularly vulnerable to vitamin K deficiency. This is due to 4 compounding factors. First, poor placental transfer of vitamin K. Second, immature hepatic synthesis of clotting factors, which is only 30 to 50% of adult levels. Third, a completely sterile gut at birth, meaning zero microbiome synthesis of K2. Fourth, low vitamin K concentration in human breast milk, only 15 microgram per liter compared to 60 microgram per liter in cow's milk. Together, these factors create a dangerous gap right after birth. This vulnerability leads to a condition called vitamin K deficiency bleeding or VKDB, which follows a clear clinical timeline. Early VKDB occurs within 0 to 24 hours of birth, usually triggered by maternal medications crossing the placenta such as anticonvulsants, rifampin, or warfarin, and it often presents as severe life-threatening internal bleeding. Classic VKDB occurs between 2 days and 1 week, is largely idiopathic, and is heavily linked to exclusive breastfeeding and lack of prophylaxis, presenting as cutaneous bruising, umbilical bleeding, or post-circumcision hemorrhage. Late VKDB occurs between 1 week and 6 months, seen in unprophylaxed, exclusively breastfed infants, or those with unrecognized hepatobiliary malabsorption, such as biliary atresia, and carries an extreme risk of devastating intracranial hemorrhage if prophylaxis was refused. When it comes to diagnosis, we need to move beyond the standard prothrombin time test. Prothrombin time is characteristically prolonged in deficiency, but it is actually an insensitive marker because it only becomes abnormal after prothrombin levels drop by more than 50%, while platelets and fibrinogen remain entirely normal. A much more accurate and sensitive marker is PIVKA2, which stands for proteins induced by vitamin K absence. When vitamin K is absent, these undercarboxylated and functionally inactive proteins build up in the blood, giving us a reliable measure of functional hepatic deficiency even after recent dietary fluctuations. This brings us to the critical topic of prophylaxis and treatment. The neonatal mandate is clear: 1 mg of vitamin K1 or phytonadione should be administered intramuscularly within 6 hours of birth, with a dose of 0.3 to 0.5 mg per kilogram for preterm infants under 1500 grams. It is important to note that oral alternatives are explicitly not recommended because they are absorbed inconsistently and definitively fail to prevent life-threatening late-onset VKDB. For adults, non-emergency situations call for 1 to 2 mg oral dose, going up to 25 mg for anticoagulant reversal. In cases of malabsorption, 2.5 to 10 mg is given subcutaneously or intramuscularly. In cases of urgent reversal or severe bleeding, fresh frozen plasma or 4-factor prothrombin complex concentrate is used for immediate factor replacement, bridged together with vitamin K to restore the body's own endogenous synthesis. Let us now compare these two vitamins side by side. Vitamin E's primary biological role is as a cellular antioxidant and membrane interceptor, while vitamin K's primary role is as an enzymatic cofactor for gamma carboxylation. The primary at-risk population for vitamin E deficiency is patients with fat malabsorption, such as those with cystic fibrosis or Abetalipoproteinemia, while for vitamin K, it is neonates due to the physiologic gap, and adults on broad-spectrum antibiotics or anticoagulants. The hallmark clinical presentation for vitamin E deficiency is neurological, including ataxia, hyporeflexia, and upward gaze difficulty, while for vitamin K, it is hematological, including VKDB, mucosal bleeding, and intracranial hemorrhage. Finally, the key diagnostic biomarker for vitamin E is serum α-tocopherol below 5 microgram per milliliter, while for vitamin K, it is elevated PIVK82 or a prolonged prothrombin time. To bring it all together, these two vitamins truly are the architects of human survival. Vitamin E ensures cellular integrity, acting as the ultimate shield against systemic oxidative collapse and irreversible neurodegeneration. Vitamin K ensures macrostructural integrity, protecting the fluidity of our vascular hemostatic system and the density of our skeletal network. The takeaway is simple: fat-soluble vitamins are not passive nutrients. Together, they are dynamic, life-saving biochemical defense systems that maintain the fundamental biological integrity required for human survival. Hope you have understand about vitamin E and vitamin K. If you found this video useful, please like and share with your friends and colleagues. Thank you.